Welcome back, my friends, to TFT Hyperroll with Autarch, and I'm interrupting my regularly scheduled video because I put up a video this morning about the Rapidfire Guardian build and how I still think it is the strongest build out there in terms of consistency. And I need to do a quick interruption in this video because the PBE changes that showed up this morning, which are supposed to be locked for next week, show that Guardian is being buffed. What does this mean? We'll talk about it more at the end. Back to the regularly scheduled video. And I received a couple of comments, which are not unlike comments I have received in other similar videos I have done, so I'm just using these as examples, and I decided to jump on my alt, it's like 3 alts down, and play a round of Can You Force It? And see what happens if I try and force this build every single time, and along the way, gonna give some tips and tricks and things I think might help anyone who is struggling with this build. So game number 1 here, first and foremost tip is don't force it. Like really, I even though you'll see the results of this video at the end, my suggestion is look for when it gives you signs that are really clear, such as a Rapidfire Jinx straight early, or you're getting a lot of Guardians and you also are able to get a couple of Rapidfires. Look for things like that before you go diving into this comp. As you climb higher, you're going to see it more and more often, which makes it a little bit more difficult to do. Your best possible augments for this are Ascension augments, Unified Resistance, there's a Guardian specific one we'll get to, and of course the obvious ones like New Recruit, Golden Egg. They're all situational dependent. I'll try to talk you through them as we go. Oh, and because I had some wild idea in my head that people might accuse me of taking earlier shot videos and throwing them in, I decided I was just going to put a marker in every single video to show the date. So today, I shot it today, 1/2/24. My general advice is to start with your Guardians. Once you have a Rapidfire champion in the backline that has Rapidfire as the headliner, you're going to be ticking 2 Rapidfires, you're good to go. Everything after that is Guardian. Slam items onto your Rapidfire so they're stronger. I would hold items until you get a Amumu, and then use a Amumu for the items. Your Guardians are pretty strong early, so you're not likely going to need items on them, and a Amumu is going to be the key to your entire Guardian build. You want him up as long as possible. My preferred items on Jinx are going to be Rageblade, number 1, first and foremost. I like Deathblade, Last Whisperer, Infinity Edge in that order, but I will put them on whenever I get them. Amumu, it's going to be Warmogs, Sunfire Cape, Bramble Vest are my 3 favorites to put on Amumu. And I just want to show the third augment here because here, Unified Resistance. I look at everything just in case, but Unified Resistance is an easy take. It's going to give your front line who you put in a line. Don't put them in a clump unless you get keepers, but I'm still not a huge fan of that because it leaves your carries, which I tend to split, open. If you have them in a line, they're going to intercept everyone and allow your backline to power up and get where you need to go. What I'm showing down there is that that's my last 2 champions that I want to get for this. It's Thresh and Poppy. Thresh will be the 6th Guardian. I'll only switch out either Taric or Kennen once I get Yorick. I bring in Poppy to trigger Emo for Amumu so he's casting more often, because again, that stun that Amumu does is going to be the key. And you see how it holds up the opposing team long enough that Jinx and Senna are able to get through and just keep winning early. Now, this build is not without counters, and this is one of the strongest, even though those are terrible items for her. But Akali will be able to take out your backliners, and that's going to be a problem because the Guardians on their own are not simply going to be able to carry even if you get Amumu up to gold 3 stars, which I try to do anytime. I'll always keep picking up extra Amumus just in case you can get them to gold. But I'm going to show you how you can potentially deal with an Akali. For the most part, and there are exceptions to this, but you want to bring in your stronger champions whenever possible. Senna is the weakest of the rapid fires if you're doing an auto attack based build. So I tend to take her out first. I will substitute Caitlyn in for Senna and then Lucian in for Aphelios once I can get the 2-star Lucian. Now, let's talk about positioning when you're dealing with Akali. See how I've brought both of my carries into the middle. Akali's going to get baited into the corner and she's going to go back and forth between there. That's going to give your champions in the middle enough time to start taking over, and they will be able to hold up long enough to focus down an Akali, who will often end up getting stuck on a Amumu and stunned, and that will be all she wrote for Akali. Now, in this particular match, the person was a little bit salty and vowed to me afterwards that there was no way I was going to win. But I was in the top 4, so as far as I was concerned, I already won. Now, here's the thing with this game. There's a lot of luck involved. This team ended up with a True Damage emblem and a Superfan emblem, so they had a full Crowd Diver True Damage team with a Zed as True Damage and a 2-star Kiana. I was not going to beat this team, but I'm pretty happy to get 2nd place. Game 1, 2nd place. I'm going to try to move through these games a little quicker as I go. Wish I wasn't doing a force because would love to have taken insert coin, but I'm doing a force here, so I have to roll everything. Given these choices, you have my sword was the winner for me because that's going to allow me to get a lot of power on my carry at the beginning. Got the Rapidfire Jinx and immediately put Deathblade on her. This is a strong early build, but the reason it's strong early is because you can slam items onto that champion. This is my little notice that this is game 2 for 1/2/2024. So it's not some game I pulled out from earlier. And just to give you an idea of thought process, spatulas, I don't need them for this, don't really want them. If I can get a Sunfire Cape on a Amumu, I'm going to go for that first. Notice it's Guardians and then Jinx in the backline. That's the entire thing. I am making sure the Guardians are up front. I had mentioned during game 1 I would get to this augment. Heroic Presence is a no-brainer for me. I roll anything just in case, but that will make your Guardians do a little damage back whenever they get hit. And since your entire front line is Guardians, yeah, it's pretty good. This game ended up going to a funky place because it gave me a Rapidfire emblem. So I ended up going to the 6 Rapidfire and 6 Guardian. So I didn't have Poppy in front to help trigger a Amumu, but I was hoping the power out of the backline would make up for it. We're into the top 4, so again, as long as you're in the top 4, you've won. Obviously, the higher the number, the more LP you get, or points when you're doing hyperroll. But we get knocked out by that team. That was really, really strong, but we still end up in 3rd place. Game 3 started with prismatic augments, but it was not giving me champions that I wanted. Now, given those choices, Final Ascension, it's one of my favorites, but I'm not getting the Rapidfire Jinx that I want. It is giving me the Guardians and the Rapidfires, but that's a Punk Jinx. Do not take Punk Jinx. That is not what you're looking for. You need it to be Rapidfire. And even if we don't have the Rapidfire, we're still going to slam items. Note, up in the corner, Game 3, 1/2/2024. I'm just doing these in orders, and I'm keeping myself honest. Final Ascension, when it kicks in, is going to allow you to do a lot more damage and will hopefully keep you winning early. Now notice we are still running undefeated in 5-2, but we had not picked up a headliner yet. Luckily, I had gotten Pandora's items and was offered a Senna, so now I can bring in a Rapidfire Senna. I also haven't been getting the Guardians I generally want, so I'm a little bit stuck in this game relying on Rapidfire. Now, I rarely use Senna as my carry, and so I got this advice in the last video I did that they position her in the middle to get rid of the main tank and the biggest groups at the beginning of the fight. I hadn't thought about that except for avoiding Akali, but it does seem to work out really well, as putting Senna in the middle did allow her to take out the groups and the team to keep winning when I didn't think it was very strong, since we didn't have a lot of Guardians. And as often happens, I got a little distracted in this game. I had been moving Senna around to deal with different threats and did not pay attention to the fact that I was facing an Akali team and I had my two strongest carries in the corner where they were just able to get destroyed. Once I hit the top 4, I stopped focusing as much and then ended up getting knocked out, but it was another 3rd place. Game 4 had a fairly typical start. I got my Rapidfire Jinx, I was setting up my Guardians, and then I had forgotten to type in that it was Game 4, so I remembered to do it at this point, so I'm just cutting straight to here. But again, brought in Jinx, slammed items on her, left the Guardians pretty much alone until I get Amumu, then start stacking items onto Amumu. It's going to keep you pretty strong, especially early in the match. And one question I've gotten before is, why do I split my carries? Why have one in each corner? Why not have two on the same side so you can focus people down? My reasoning is that often if someone has a big enough tank, your carries will get stuck on them. And I don't want that. I want to be able to clear out as much as possible as we move in and press in to get the win. And I know I've said this before, Ascension is one of my primary. I tend to look at everything, but if I see Ascension and there's nothing else jumping out, I'm going to take it. Amumu, stack on Warmogs, stack on Bramble's Vest. I like to get Sunfire Cape for the anti-heal if I can get it. If you can't, just go with what you got. In this case, we happen to take Burning Strikes early. If you get Burning Strikes, don't go with Sunfire Cape. It's not going to stack. And this should go without saying, but keep your eye out for opportunities to improve the team. Here I had a Jinx, she wasn't up to 3 stars, got offered a Rapidfire Lucian, so sold Jinx, took the second 2-star Jinx and brought in Lucian. That's going to be a much stronger unit. Might have made a different choice if this was a 3-star Jinx, because it would have broken up my Rapidfire, but the chance to exchange a 2-star Jinx for a 2-star headline Lucian, then it's kind of a no-brainer for me. And this was an exceptionally fun game for me because Janusz asked if I was the real Autarch YouTuber, and I don't think of myself as a YouTuber. I just kind of make videos to help people and have fun, and it always just, I love it when people say that they like the videos and whatnot. It's really cool. The other thing that was great about this particular game is because, well, we had the 2-star Rapidfire Lucian with some excellent items. Generally, I don't go for Bloodthirster just because I'd rather have more power. In this case, it really didn't matter. Lucian, as a headliner, is very, very strong and was able to secure us a 1st place in Game 4. And thank you for saying hi, Janusz. I appreciate it. And if you followed this channel in the past, then you know that Can You Force It is 5 games. So this is the 5th and final game that is going to determine whether this is forcible or not. And it's final game 1/2/2024. So yes, I really did play it on this patch in the year 2024. And this is also why I like to separate my carries, because we could have gotten killed with the AoE, but because we were separated, we were able to hit Echo from 2 different sides there and at least keep winning early. Now this game I broke a couple of my usual rules, but there's a reason. We had multi-talented and then got new recruits, so I ended up bringing in a Twitch so we would go up to the 4 punks. That would give us a little more damage on Jinx, and I didn't feel it would be taking away from the build since we have new recruit and Twitch would just be an extra player that was enhancing a trait from 3 to 4. Now I want you to keep this moment in mind for the end of the game, because it's going to have implications. We're going into our 3rd augment. I see Final Ascension. I decide to say, forget about it, not take Prismatic Ticket, then go for Golden Egg over Final Ascension, because I know that's going to give me a Tactician's Crown and then some additional stuff. I make the Deathblade for Jinx because, again, I'm just trying to make her as strong as possible. She's already up to the gold 3 stars. Another thing I want to mention here is that when I'm stuck, I will go with a blue buff on Amumu. Just anything to get him casting more often. Each time he casts, he's increasing his armor, plus he will eventually do his ult, which will stun everyone for, I think it's a 1.5 seconds. But when you're running Rapidfire with Rage Blades, that 1 second or 1.5 seconds is going to count big time, and you can see it here as Jinx is just able to tear through the team and break over 10,000 damage. Now here's where I'm looking back on the Prismatic Ticket, the Final Ascension, and the other choices I had. Yes, I do get the additional Tactician's Crown, so I now have a couple of additional players, but it gives me a Gambler's Blade as one of my items. I was hoping for a couple of Champion Duplicators, which is something it often gives. Gambler's Blade might help me early, but as I get to the end, it's gonna become a little bit useless because I'm not going to likely keep a lot of extra gold in my bank towards the end because it's the end. Now, why do I especially look back on that moment? Notice my board. Well, not my board, my bench. I have 1 Yorick to go for the gold 3-star Yorick, which will ensure me the win. This team against me is going to beat the comp I currently have. I know it. This is now a 2nd place build unless I can get the gold 3-star Yorick. I had used the Champion Duplicator, the greater one that I had, to take Yorick up early on. But because I didn't have Prismatic Ticket earlier, they were able to Yorick block me. And I could not get that last Yorick because it's sitting up there in the upper right on their bench. I had tried at one point to shift over to Lucian, but they were just not popping up, and that was because I had turned Lucian into a punk as well. But either way, it's still a good game and a victory because Game 5 ends up in 2nd place. So here's the list of games from my match history. As you can see, it's 2nd, 1st, 3rd, 3rd, and 2nd. If you add them all up and divide by 5, it gives you 2.2 as your average place, and that's forcing it. Again, please don't force it. But I can confirm that as of now, nothing has changed. My advice, if you're struggling, get 1 champion with the Rapidfire as headline and stack your damage items on them. If it's Senna, it's going to be AP. Anyone else is going to be AD. Then focus on Guardians, as many as you can get. Put them just in a straight line in front. As you bring in additional people, separate them on opposite corners. If you're facing an Akali, move to the middle. You may be able to get past it that way. And now for some additional information, as I mentioned earlier, cutting out my original ending and explaining that yes, this does appear to be being buffed in the next patch. What does that mean? Well, it's going to get stronger, but it's likely going to be even more competitive now. But I think if you know the tips from this video, it will help you get ahead of the people who are just trying to jump on board. Hope you enjoyed this video and it helps you climb to hyper, and as always, have an absolutely awesome day.